Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. So today I'm going to hit a subject matter that's a little bit personal for some people, not so much for me, but it gets asked a lot in light of certain live plays and certain events. It gets asked a lot on places like Twitter and Reddit as well, and that's should you kill your PCs? Should death be part of an RPG? And before we get started, I'm going to answer that question with an unequivocal yes. But the important part of this video is going to be the why, how, wins. Um, because killing a character is important, because it should matter, because it should be a big part of the story, it should not be done just on a whim for no reason. Um, Character death should mean something, not only to the player who loses the character, but to the other players, to the GM, to the story. All of that should matter when you're discussing player character death. So that being said, let's go into this a little bit and talk just for a minute about character death. What does it mean? How should it be handled? And again, guys, I'm going to preface this. This is just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I am perfectly happy either way. If you think I'm wrong, you feel free to leave your comments. I am happy to address anything you leave behind, as long as it's appropriate and non-argumentative, by which I mean you're not trying to start a fight. Um, so that being said, guys, player character death should happen in a couple of ways, in my opinion. The first and foremost is going to be a result of poor combat tactics or poor preparation. Characters who see a dragon run in a straight line deserve to get baked by the breath weapon. The player character who pulls a knife in a gunfight should get shot in the face. I mean, that's how it works from a game mechanic standpoint. They are outmatched, and they have poorly decided to do things that are ill advised. And therefore, the consequence of their ill advised actions is character death. The second way that a character should die should be the only way I know how to put it is bad luck. They set off an instant death trap. They fell a skill roll at the wrong time. Something massive happens. You know, those are absolutely appropriate times to kill player characters. Times inappropriate to kill player characters, in my opinion. Um, you should never allow consistently terrible die rolls to be the sole arbiter of character death. If a player does everything right and the dice just continually screw them, I do not like killing player characters in that circumstance. I will still let them be defeated. I will still let them fail. I will still let them have bad things happen. But I tend to avoid character death as the consequence in that circumstance because it's not, at that point, it's not their fault. Um, at the end of the day, role playing is a dice game. You are rolling dice. You are trying to determine, the value of the player character's actions, yada yada. And part of that is the dice roll. So if dice are just brutal to a player group, sometimes the way to handle that is they get knocked unconscious and taken prisoner. They get trapped in a room that they can't escape. List any number of things. They get caught by the guards when they're trying to stealth, whatever. You don't always have to kill player characters because in combat the dice screw them. That is a mean way to handle poor dice rolling. In my opinion, that's a very mean, cruel way to handle dice rolling. Uh, that being said, those are the two ways that I handle character death. And so when you're handling character death, how do I handle? How do I approach it? Um, the first is uh, I don't believe in balanced encounters. Okay, so let's start there. I don't believe in balancing encounters all the time. There are things that are bigger, badder, and scarier than your player characters in the world. They will occasionally run into them. It is part of the game. Um, that being said, do not be afraid to play bigger, badder, scarier monsters, smart, and the way they should be played. So if a gang of people in Cyberpunk outgun you, it might be incumbent on your group to shoot instead of trying to kill the people, just to create a diversion and get out. Uh, you know, it might be incumbent on you to not risk opening the chest that you think might be trapped with a deadly trap. You have to make the decision on the risk that you're willing to take as a player character. And I'm going to use an example of one of the best piece of advice I've ever seen from a book. Comes from the Dragon Warriors combat section, where it literally says, or on paraphrase, but it literally says this, that the best part of Valor is running away. Um, Things will kick you in the teeth if you're not careful. You are squishy. You are able to be killed, and don't forget it. That being said, I think a lot of modern RPG games are written to prevent character death. Characters are written and created with the idea that they're the hero of the story and they shouldn't die. That is not how RPGs were originally designed. Characters in a lot of early RPGs were easy to create specific or easier to create specifically because they were disposable. You could die very easily, and you should be able to get a new character to the table pretty quick. And even in some games where character creation is more complicated, say Rollmaster, characters in Rollmaster are kind of squishy. They can and will die if you fight incompetently. Make no mistake. And believe me, you do not want a Rollmaster character to die, because creating a Rollmaster character is about an hour-long process. So keeping that in mind. So how do you kill your player characters? This is a big one. Kill your player characters through tactical choices. Kill your player characters through intelligently designed traps, intelligently placed challenges. Don't just kill them because you're angry at one of them. Don't just kill them because it feels like that's what you want to do because you want to end the game. Whatever. That is a poor way to handle it, and that leads to a type of GMing which I'm abhorrent to. I'm absolutely antagonistic against it, and that's the adversarial GMing style, where it becomes us versus the GM or GM versus them. And I do not care for that type of GMing style at all. Your characters should die because of poor choices, and that's just how it is. Something else I would also heavily encourage minimal use of is save or suck. Not saying don't use it at all. It absolutely has its place, but if you're overusing save or suck, your game is typically not going to be exciting. You're going to make your players afraid to do anything because God help us, because we might wind up just dying to a bad roll. That's not fun. That's boring. That's adversarial, and it's not fun. So when you go into a situation where you know you have potential to kill at least one player character, make it worthwhile. That's the next part of it. Make the death worthwhile. It needs to be a memorable event, not just for the player that experiences the loss of their character, but for the rest of the table. Maybe he dies blocking a door so the rest of his group can escape. Maybe he dies trying to prevent a cave in, whatever. It can be memorable, and it should be important, and it should be a key part to the story. That character should be talked about by surviving characters. If you're just killing your characters routinely for no reason, that just isn't going to happen, because characters are just basically faceless. They're basically NPCs with a little more flesh, and nobody's going to remember the character you killed because he was only there for 2 sessions. The way I'll give you a piece of advice that I can give you: go listen to the way the character death is handled in Glass Cannon's Giant Slayer. He has killed several characters in that. I'm only about halfway through it, and he's killed several characters in that. And every character he has killed has had a memorable death that came about in dire circumstances, and those characters are still talked about among the players and the GM, because the death was kind of epic. So that's how you handle character death. Don't like I said, don't just kill characters because you have the power to kill characters. It is not that just sucks the fun out of it. I cannot emphasize that enough. And then the final reason I would say the generalized why, I've kind of gotten into it a little bit. The generalized why you kill characters, it creates tension, and it creates real stakes for the group. If they realize you're not afraid to slay their PC, they are going to be a lot more likely to approach challenges more cleanly, healthier ways. They're going to be a lot more prone to think things through, whether it be battle tactics, how they approach challenges, whatever. Um, Getting hurts, and it should hurt uh, from the player perspective. So don't be afraid, to use those circumstances in a way that can kill a player character if they're incompetent. Okay, and then as a side note, I'm going to make a quick note here, guys. One thing I'm not encouraging you to do, because I'm not a big fan of it, uh, don't fudge dice. Don't let the dice fall where they may. Um, it is perfectly acceptable to not fudge dice and, like I said, not kill the player characters even if they hit 0 hit points. You can fudge that they're not at 0 hit points or that they've just passed out and whatever. You can do that. You have the power to do that. So, but don't fudge the dice. Don't allow the players to fudge the dice. Again, fudging dice is a very poor way of handling uh, character adversity. Sometimes the dice just fall very favorably for the GM. Sometimes they fall favorably for the players, and sometimes they roll like crap for everyone at the table because they're dice. They're random. They're a random number generation. So, but that being said, guys, that's how I handle character death. That's why I handle it the way I do. Hopefully, you guys get something out of this video. And if you do, please always let me know. And like I said, if you have a different way of handling character death, by all means, leave it below. I am perfectly happy to read what you guys have to say. As always, though, guys, follow the 3 rules. No ad hominems, no picking fights, no college dissertations. And other than that, guys, we do hope you have fun, and we do hope to see you guys around the game table at some point.